Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the 2016 Domestic Violence Awareness Month Kickoff and Candlelight Vigil. I'm Catherine Mobley, Senior Producer for the City of Winston-Salem Marketing and Communication Department, and I am very honored to be a part of this program this evening. We are going to start off with Mayor Alan Joynes, who's going to read a proclamation to open our program, followed by Winston-Salem Police Department Chaplain Dr. Nathan Scovin, who is going to deliver a prayer of comfort for family and friends whose lives have been shattered by domestic violence. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Catherine. Good evening, everyone. Certainly, it's always a sobering event as we come together once per year to really try to remember and bring attention and awareness, shine a light on this dark area of domestic violence here in our community and really across the country. I recognize my colleague, Councilmember Dan Bessie from the Southwest Ward is here as well. Councilmember Bessie's always been a huge supporter of this. We look around the room and see these silhouettes of victims of domestic violence, and it really puts a place in our hearts for those losses. I know there are members of the family that are here tonight, and we certainly express our thoughts with you as well. So it is my honor tonight to issue a proclamation. Whereas domestic violence consists of a pattern of coercion and intimate relationships where one person uses violence to gain power and control over a partner or other family members. And whereas domestic violence is a crime through the systemic use of control and abuse, it violates the individual's dignity, humanity, privacy, and security. And whereas domestic violence may include emotional, mental, physical, psychological, and/or sexual abuse, as well as financial control and often isolation. And whereas the health-related cost of rape, physical assault, stalkings, and homicides committed by intimate partners exceeds $5.8 billion per year. And whereas people of all ages, races, religious affiliations, sexual orientations, and socioeconomic backgrounds are vulnerable to domestic violence. And whereas, according to the Centers for Disease Control, nearly 1 in 4 women in the United States reports experiencing violence by a current or former spouse or partner at some point in their life. And whereas the City of Winston-Salem is committed to taking a firm position against domestic violence and will remain focused on ensuring that all people are safe in their homes and that abusers are held accountable for their crimes. And whereas the key to prevention is focusing on first-time perpetrators, as well as developing changes in social norms, policies, and laws to foster intimate relationships based on respect and trust. Now, therefore, I, Alan Joynes, Mayor of the City of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim October 2016 as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Winston-Salem. And I encourage all of our residents to show support for the survivors of domestic violence and to actively participate in efforts to end violence in our homes, churches, schools, and communities. I signed this day on the 5th day of October 2015.
Good evening. Tonight I come not as just one who offers prayer for comfort, but as a child growing up, I witnessed domestic violence against my own mother. And I feel your pain and understand exactly what you're going through. So tonight, I'm not just praying as one who's coming to pray for you, but I'm also praying for healing of memories that I have in my own life. And so tonight, if you will bow. Gracious God, we thank you for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us. And yet tonight, we pause, recognizing that there is still much hurt, a lot of pain, and healing needs to take place. We're praying, God, for the families and friends, the communities, the neighbors whose lives have been shattered by domestic violence. We pray, God, that healing would take place and the brokenness of every heart would be mended back together again, because in spite of it all, we recognize that there is still hope. There is hope because we gather here tonight to reflect, to remember, but also to respond and rally as a community to stand against domestic violence of all sorts. We pray tonight for those who have gathered here and throughout this community, that you will touch the hearts, heal the brokenness, and give them hope. We ask, God, for every survivor, that you will strengthen, comfort, guide, and keep them. And then, Lord, lest we forget the children who are impacted by domestic violence, we ask your blessings and your favor upon all of us. We thank you for this gathering, but we also pray that we will not leave here and forget those who have been victimized by domestic violence. We ask God blessings upon one and all. We stand here tonight praying for comfort, peace, and yet we believe that there is still hope. It is in your name we pray. We give thanks and ask it all. And all of God's children said together, Amen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Scovens. Thank you very much, Dr. Scovens. Often when we talk about domestic violence, we focus on the victim, which is important. We need to. But what about the offender? According to the Winston-Salem Police Department, in 2015, more than 3,800 domestic violence offenders were documented. Most were men, but some were women, illustrating women can also be aggressors in relationships. And 2014 stats were about the same. Of this group, more than half were involved with only one domestic violence incident. So that means most of these offenders were people just like you and I. Ordinarily, they're pretty even-keel individuals. But it was in a moment that everything changed. My next guest says this is what happened to him. In a moment, his entire life changed forever. Good evening, John. Good evening. This is John Eddings. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for our program. Now, when we were talking earlier, you were talking about a mantra you have about people making mistakes. Tell us what that is.
Well, everybody makes mistakes in life, but with a second chance and with help, everyone can be a better person. And I say that every day. No one's perfect, but with time and help, you can become a better person.
In 2011, you were married for the first time. It was a blended family, so it was yourself and you had two daughters you brought to the family. Your wife brought one daughter to the family.
Yes.
And everything was pretty much going okay?
Good.
All right. It was going well, all right. And I'm sure you guys had your ups and downs, and that's true for any family,
Yes.
right? A year later, in 2012, right? It was the Sunday afternoon in September. You guys had been to church. Everyone was now relaxing at home. You were in your recliner in the living room watching football. But something happened. What happened?
As I was watching football, my wife came to me and said, "What's this on Facebook?" I looked at her, I said, what are you talking about? She said, these pictures of all these people, and they're emailing back and forth. I said, well, let me get up. I got up and walked over to the computer. I sat down, I said, you have the password. That's nothing. If you got the password, you can look at it any time. She said, no, that does not make sense. So the next thing I know, I'm in the window.
How did you get in the window?
She pushed me in the window. And for a minute, I lost her because I kept trying to make sure everything was right, but it wasn't working. Then when she pushed me in the window, I jumped up and I smacked her. And as I smacked her, she looked at me and she ran upstairs. I thought about it, then I went up to apologize to make sure everything was okay. That whole evening, I think 6 days later, no conversation, nothing.
6 days later, it's a Friday afternoon, you've come home from work, you're cutting the grass, it's just an ordinary afternoon for you. 2 Winston-Salem police officers show up at your home. What did they want?
They came in, knocked on the door. Luckily, they gave me an opportunity to change my clothes. They knocked on the door and pretty much they said, you're John Eddings? I said, yes. He said, well, you know Nicole? I said, yes. He said, well, you need to come with us. They put me in handcuffs and took me downtown.
So they were arresting you?
Yes, arrested.
For what?
Once I got downtown and got processed, I started getting into paperwork for domestic violence, assault on a female. And during that time, they said, you can't go. I was like, okay. I had to stay in 48 hours.
Had you ever been arrested for domestic violence? Had you ever been arrested for anything?
No, ma'am, never.
So now you've been photographed, fingerprinted. You're now in the system.
Yes.
What was going through your mind?
At first, I was like, oh man, my job, I'm not going to be able to go to my job. And I thought about it and thought about it, I said, oh man, so you got a chance to make a phone call. I couldn't even make a phone call because I was so upset and I really didn't know what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. So as the time I got out and made a first appearance. Mm-hmm. And during the first appearance, they gave me more paperwork. They gave me a 50B while I was incarcerated.
And that's a restraining order?
Restraining order. And they said I couldn't go back to the house. I couldn't do anything.
So at that point, now if you can't go back to your home, and that's where your family and all your belongings are, you're pretty much homeless.
Yes, I was homeless. I had to sleep in my truck for 2 days.
Was there anyone who you could plug into to help you? Because this is all new territory.
I was embarrassed, and I didn't know what to do, and then I finally told my best friend and his wife, and they told me I could live with them until the situation gets better.
Okay. You also filed assault charges against your wife, but you dropped them. Why?
As I was thinking more about it, as the weeks went by, I thought about it. I made the mistake. I have to take ownership for the mistake, so it's best for me to just go ahead and drop it and handle the situation that it happened on my behalf.
Okay. After a couple of weeks, your wife actually reached out to you because you couldn't contact her.
Yes,
but she reached out to you and she said she wanted to drop the charges against you, the assault charges, but you wouldn't let her. Why not?
I didn't want to get the charges dropped because it was a situation that really affected me, and I just wanted to make sure that it would never happen again, so I just rather go to the process of going to court.
Okay. So 2 months later, in November, you make your final court appearance. What did you tell the judge?
I told the judge, Your Honor, I made a mistake. Everybody's not perfect. I said if I get a second chance, I'll make a better person out of myself. I never got in trouble. They said, well, we had this program, this is a program, so I accept the program.
Okay, so the judge believed what you said and believed in your integrity, and so he recommended you go into a special program for first-time offenders. 28 weeks. If you complete it successfully, then all the charges against you would be dropped.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about this environment. Was it one-on-one or what was it?
It was a group environment. It was between 15 to 18 males in there for the same reason, domestic violence. And one thing about the class, it makes you take ownership. So my name is John Eddings. I'm here because I assaulted a female, and hopefully 28 weeks I'll become a better man. And so during the 28 weeks, we learned how to handle situations, to be better when that situation happens again. And you learn sometimes that the situation doesn't get better and it continues to grow, then you have to make decisions to exit that environment so that it will not happen again.
Through that period, you learned some strategies for conflict management, anger management. What were some of the key points you guys learned through your discussions?
Communication. Communication is what is the problem, how the problem happened, how we can move forward. Other one is the behavior. Everybody gets angry sometimes. Sometimes we get too angry that we don't control our feelings or behaviors in a proper way. So I learned that you have angry behavior or you have positive behavior, and you have a choice to decide what behavior is going to work for you. And hopefully everybody makes that positive behavior that you don't get yourself in any trouble.
Okay. And if for some reason the strategies don't work, then
you exit the house and you walk and you come back when everything is right and you are a better person to come back and try to communicate with your partner to make sure that everybody's good.
do you feel like this program helped you to grow into a better person?
Yes, ma'am, I really do. I think that one thing you learn about this program is the kids are the ones that are affected, because if they see it, then they sometimes think it's okay. And sometimes they divide themselves. And I lost my family. My daughter had to leave and go live with her grandmother. It just messed my whole world up.
Mm-hmm. You and your wife eventually divorced, and but you did write a letter to her apologizing both to her and to her parents. And was that well received?
Yes, it was well received from the parents. I really can't tell from the ex-wife, but I made a mistake, and I have to live with that. And my kids have to live with it by seeing that and talking about it every day. So what I said, if I get another chance, I'm going to be better, and hopefully I can help other people.
And part of trying to help other people, you actually had that opportunity the following year in 2013 during a cookout at your house. A gentleman, Tasman Earl Boone, who was a family friend, he was there. You saw him, and there was something about him that really caught your eye. What was it?
As I looked at him, he was looking like I was a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like he had a lot of things going on with him, and just need someone to talk to get it out, to make sure that, you know, he can handle the situation. And he said he was fine. I tried my best to talk to him, you know, but it just didn't work.
And unfortunately, a few weeks later, Mr. Boone went to Forsyth Medical Center visiting his newborn daughter. He also visited his girlfriend, who had just given birth, went into her room. He shot and killed her, and then he shot and killed himself. When you heard about the murder-suicide, and it made all the media, what hit your spirit?
I felt like I didn't do enough to help him. I saw his mother break down. It was just a lot. And then my situation, and I said to myself, I got to do more if that ever happens again, because everybody makes mistakes, but I think if you get help before it gets to that point where you lose it, that the help will sometimes put you in the right direction.
And according to family and police, the couple had a long history of a violent relationship, and both had actually been arrested at different occasions for domestic violence against each other. So it really was a sad experience overall. In the very beginning of our talk, you said we all need help from time to time.
Yes, we do. And sometimes men, and I'm seeing myself, we don't want to tell other people about our problems. We don't want to be embarrassed because they'll look at you like something's wrong with you. So sometimes we tend to hold stuff in. And I learned it's not good to hold it in, because you don't know what happened. In my prime example of the domestic violence in 2013, that really changed a lot. You know, I was worried. You know, I was moving up the ranks in the company I worked for, and that, what I do, you can't be around kids if you have a felony in that aspect. So it made me think long and hard. And during that 28 weeks, it just really changed the outlook of what I can do and what can I do to help other people that need help.
John, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. Too often, domestic violence incidents hit the media headlines, especially when someone dies as a result. Our next guest has resulted on some of these tragic events that have occurred in our community. Please welcome Nicole Duker, evening news anchor at WXII 12 News.
Thank you so much for having me here tonight. A lot of you approached me and said that you watched, so I'll take a moment and say thank you for watching us on WXII. You know, I am part of the media. We can take a minute to smile at this. I'm part of the fleet of reporters, those people who, for any law enforcement here, we get a little too close to your crime scene tape. For those city officials here, we do ask the repeated and seemingly unnecessary questions at those press conferences over and over. And we are the ones who report on your hard work, policing, volunteering, and being activists in our community. And oftentimes when it comes to domestic violence, we are the ones who show up just a little bit too late. And how many of us here know that feeling of showing up just too late? The big story for us is oftentimes the mother of the victim, the brother of the victim, even the neighbor who maybe heard something that night. Why is that the big story for us? And a lot of the times it's because the bad guy's in jail, the victim unfortunately has died, and we are there to collect what's left and to tell that story to the Piedmont Triad, another domestic violence story. And that's quite sad. It is sad that we couldn't do something beforehand as the media. Taking you inside just our newsroom and how it works, I can't tell you how many times we get phone calls at the station, people who've said, you know, I filed paperwork against my husband, I've told the police, he's still threatening me, can't you do a story about it? Can't you bring cameras and, you know, do the gotcha media and interview him? And frankly, we can't. We have to say, look, no one's been charged, there's no police report. When they call, we ask those questions. You know, has anybody been charged? They say, well, no. Have you told police? No, haven't done that. Do you feel like you're in danger? Well, I don't know. So then we give them every hotline number we can possibly give out. We have them in a filing system. We give them numbers of women's shelters. And at the end of the day, that's all that we can do. Well, recently we asked ourselves at WXII, is that really all that we can do? Why does it have to stop there? Why does it have to stop at the cameras and the microphones? As the media, we have an incredible power to reach the masses. And what you're about to hear is going to sound like a very cheesy commercial for our news station or some kind of a pitch, but it's not, because I want you to think about these numbers. We have more than 81,000 Twitter followers at WXII. Almost 200,000 people follow us on Facebook. That's just our main page. That's not our talent. Our WXII 12 app gets 60 to 70,000 visitors a month. Our website can get up to 1 million viewers or visitors a month. And that is power to reach the masses that we need to be using for good. So we produced a special on domestic violence. It aired on television, it was all over social media and the web. Wanda Stark hosted that special, and she worked very hard on that special behind the scenes as well. It was called Domestic Violence, The Hidden Hurt. It aired 1 year ago this month. Wanda told our viewers what domestic violence is, how to get help, and she shared some stories about those who waited too long and some who didn't get out early and some who did. Tonight, I'd like to share with you one story from that special. I brought the video with me, and this relates to your story. Thank you very much for telling that, and to our chaplain's story. It kind of goes along with husband and children. We use a lot of the times the word husband, the word he, to talk about the man. Oftentimes, this involves children. It involves families. It's not always a husband and wife scenario. So this story from our special I'd like to share with you tonight is about a brave man who, like yourself, admitted what happened in front of our thousands of people, the millions of views on our website, people who watch our TV station, and in front of our cameras. So now I'd like to show you that story that aired on WXII.
Got banged around a lot. And that's the beginning of the whole progression of things, because later on in life, I mean, when I was a kid, he pushed me, knocked me around and everything like that. As I got older enough to defend myself, I would do that. And then as I got older and angrier, I would beat him up.
Scotty Dom says he vowed he would never be like his father, but he was.
In the end, it got to the point where I could walk into my house and say nothing. I didn't have to go in and start throwing stuff. I could walk into my house and say nothing and make everybody go to a different room.
Dom says it all changed when he faced a judge after his son called 911.
Sentenced me to 5 years. And that got my attention. And then said, I'm going to suspend this sentence. I'm going to give you a 5-year suspended sentence. I remember him looking at me and he says, if you hit one more person, you're going straight to jail for 5 years and you're not coming out.
Dom says it took time to build healthy relationships with his son and daughter, but they're now best of friends. He credits recovery, counseling, and mentoring programs. Ironically, he's now happily married to a woman who was a victim of domestic violence. She says she doesn't recognize the man he describes. When he talks to abusers, Dom challenges them to answer some tough questions.
Do you want your kids to be afraid of you? Is that what you want? Is this woman that you married that you're supposed to love, do you want her to be afraid of you? Do you want them to have to lie to you for fear that you're going to go crazy about something? Do you really think that it's okay for you to beat them up?
That was one of our stories that aired in that domestic violence special, and it was a powerful one because it's from an angle that we don't always hear about. So what can we do and how can we cut the domestic violence numbers back? From a media person's standpoint, it's got to be the education. Like I said, we have to reach the masses. If anybody in this room has a story about maybe a shelter, a hotline, a way to get people help, maybe a victim who has turned into a counselor or someone that wants to share their story, we want you to reach out to the media because that's how we can educate the public. So tonight, we need to combine our powers to give the power of getting out before these people give up. Thank you very much for letting me come here tonight and speak. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Nicole. We really appreciate that story and the work you and so many other reporters and all of our producers and people behind the scene, the cameramans at Channel 12, and also all of our other media outlets. We really do appreciate your help. During 2011, there were more than 4,800 domestic violence incidents reported to Winston-Salem Police Department. Almost 650 of these incidents also involved other serious crimes, such as rape, arson, robbery, and murder. In 2015, the number of domestic violence incidents actually dropped a little bit, but more of these incidents involved additional serious crimes, up to 815. So we went from 647 to 815. This is evidence more needs to be done in our community. The city of Winston-Salem is now the home to a new nonprofit joining the fight against domestic violence, Eliza's Helping Hands. It was founded last year in 2015. It provides resources to survivors and to their families, as well as to individuals affected by sexual assault and other violent crimes in our community. Their office is downtown on East 5th Street in the Winston Mutual Building. Stephanie Jimenez is on the board. She's the board chair. She's also the director of one of the group's programs. It's called CARE, Creating Access to Relationship Enhancement. It provides emergency financial advocacy and support services to survivors of domestic violence and to their families. Please join me in welcoming Stephanie.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Eliza's Helping Hands, her founder, Kenya Thornton, on behalf of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, child abuse survivors whom we serve, of the individuals and families affected by domestic violence right now, and on behalf of the victims who have lost their lives to domestic violence, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for assembling today in their honor in order to show your support, to raise awareness about this rampant social ill, and to stand up and speak out with us to say domestic violence is not okay. Not in our town. There is no excuse for abuse. We are better than this. We can do better. We will not continue to let our women be subjugated to the trickery of domestic violence. We will not continue to let our children to have to endure and carry the lifelong devastating consequences of it. I sometimes tell my survivors, this isn't love, it's power and control. And it does not just stop on its own. Abusers don't just, or rarely just, stop abusing on their own. And I'm here to tell you that victims don't just heal on their own without receiving some real support, without being believed, without being understood, without feeling some compassion or some sort of validation from somewhere. No more. My name is Stephanie Jimenez. I was a victim of domestic violence in my early 20s. In my late 20s, I became a survivor. My 30s marked the start of my professional career in domestic violence. As a fervent and passionate victim advocate first, as co-creator and director of the CARE program at Eliza's Helping Hands, now as board chair of the newest domestic violence organization in town, and hopefully soon as a Wake Forest graduate in mental health clinical counseling. So I am here to tell you that domestic violence can be overcome. I've done it, we can do it, other people can do it, but we can't do it alone. We have to work together. We have to collaborate amongst us, amongst individuals, amongst organizations, agencies, court system, legal system, social services. We cannot fight domestic violence on our own. Today, Kenya Thornton and I, our wonderful staff and many volunteers who also care deeply about this cause and helping victims become victors. Eliza's Helping Hand provides emergency advocacy and support services to victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and child abuse. We have a 24/7 crisis line in Spanish and English, and that is 336-865-0389. We have crisis intervention, safety planning, needs assessment, case management, address confidentiality program, information referral and community advocacy, legal advocacy, court mediation, support groups, and wellness programs such as self-defense classes, yoga classes, horseback riding classes. Of course, we don't do that. We collaborate to make that happen with other organizations. We provide clothing, food, and financial assistance. But we want to do more. And we need your help. We need our entire community help to kick the doors wide open on such a behind closed doors problem. This year, Eliza's Helping Hand, along with Community Intervention, host of the COOL program for domestic violence offenders, which stands for Creating Opportunities for Others to Learn, Voice for Children and Nurturing Families and Their Trauma-Informed Counseling, have begun to form partnerships with the police department and Mindside Counseling and Consultation Services to run domestic violence out of town, as is the name of our first annual campaign this year, and series of fabulous events and fundraisers. And in that regard, I'd like to quickly thank all of the businesses and individuals and agencies who have joined us in our fight against domestic violence. And these are, bear with me, Cash Lovell Stables, Hands Brands, Fleet Feet, Krispy Kreme, YWCA, Costco, Genesis Sport, excuse my accent, Twin City Quarter, Nail Tricks, Holistic Skincare and Threading, the Winston-Salem Lady Warcats basketball team, Aaron Berlin for Judge, Daggett and Schuler, Twin City Track Club, Mario's Pizza, 66 Pizzeria, Mad Greek Grill, Oso Eats, Muddy Creek Cafe, Out West, The Sherwood, Midtown Desertery, Texas Roadhouse, Mary's Gourmet Diner, and Courtside Cafe. So it's a long list, and it might be a little boring for you, but to me, that means people are getting out of their business. They're not just serving pizza. They're not just giving the news. They're not just making underwear. They're helping. They're getting with us, and they're helping us fight domestic violence in this area. Won't you join us? If you would like more information about Eliza's Helping Hands, how you can join us in our fight, volunteer, and the likes, please visit our website or our table outside. Our website is elizashelpinghands.org. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you very much for all of that. Our next guest grew up in an environment of domestic violence. But he says actually it was the women in the family who were the aggressors, more so than the men. They would verbally criticize and harass their husbands, their brothers. He also, unfortunately, this summer lost a very close female friend who was in an unhealthy relationship, and she died as a result of domestic violence. Julian Bertano is an actor based here in the Triad. He can be seen in Greenleaf, which is an Oprah Winfrey production that just rolled out this year. He's also going to be in Shots Fired, which is a police thriller that will premiere on the Fox network in 2017. Off-screen, this single father is also mobilizing male friends, colleagues, and new acquaintances against domestic violence. As he says, he wants to stand in the gap for men and women who are survivors and who want help to develop healthier relationships. Julian?
Good evening, everybody. I thank you all for gathering. I want to thank the Winston-Salem Police Department, as well as Eliza's Helping Hands, for allowing me to come in and share in this moment to encourage many of you who are survivors and to honor those that unfortunately fell victim to this heinous act of domestic violence. Yes, it's true. I did have a friend, an acting friend of mine, associate, who was brutally murdered this past summer. It was rough. It was rough on the whole community. And I decided at that moment something had to happen. So I decided to stand in the gap. Let me step in the gap and stand there. And I invited some friends to join me. And this vigil is important because you all need to know that you need to not just survive, but to thrive. Thrive in your continued life. Thrive together as a community. Thrive on behalf of your loved ones. So, at this moment, before I announce the name, read off the names in honor of the victims, I would like to call up Karen. I'm sorry, Karen, forgive me. I don't know your last Harris. Karen Harris to come up. She's going to light the candle as I read off the names of these victims. And this can be emotional, so please know, I've been noted that there are some counselors that are present if anyone needs to visit with one. So please take note of that. And again, I thank you all for your time. So right now, let's honor Tasha Cassandra Barr, Cheryl Anise Bethia, Sequina Lanique Cutchin, Richard Dawley and the Dawley Dogs, Allison Holt Gaither, Janet Harris, Sergeant Mickey Hutchins, Ashley Mabe, Manica Mattal, Isa Lily Morris, Linda Nelly Nunez Rivera, Maria Rodriguez, Rosinda Albina Rodriguez, and Tammy Diane Wilson. Now, for all of those out there that have also lost loved ones, at this moment, please stand. Thank you for standing. And if you like, you can say the name of your loved one that you lost. Thank you. My friend, her name was Lakeisha Brown, and she was out of Atlanta. I thank you all for your time. And again, like Stephanie said, let's work together and collaborate and fight this enemy called domestic violence.
Thank you very much, Julian. And Karen, thank you, both of you. Winston-Salem police officers take an enormous risk every day when they sign on for duty. And whenever they respond to a domestic violence event, the potential dangers increase dramatically, not only for the individuals involved in the conflict, but also the responding police officers. This evening, Lieutenant Eric Montgomery will explain some of the department's initiatives to help reduce domestic violence in our community. And then after that, we will hear from our police chief, Barry Roundtree.
Good evening. The police department's goal is not only to combat domestic violence, but to bring as much awareness to it as possible. You've heard a lot of different angles or different perspectives from domestic violence. So we wanted to share with you this evening our 2016 initiatives for domestic violence. The Winston-Salem Police Department partnered with Community Intervention and Educational Services, Eliza's Helping Hands, MindSight Counseling and Consultation Services for our Domestic Violence Awareness Month efforts. And again, our objective was to create as much awareness as possible. A special note and a special thank you to the Small Business Center at Forsyth Tech for being our host this evening for our Domestic Violence Awareness Month kickoff. The police department's silent witness silhouettes that you see around the room and you probably saw down the hall will be on display at numerous events throughout the city during the month of October. So if you see any of our silent witness silhouettes, please take a picture and post it to the WSPD Twitter or Instagram page. Purple ribbons, all of our marked police vehicles will display a purple ribbon magnet on the vehicle throughout the month of October. In Corporating Plaza, there are purple ribbons tied to the trees that border the park. Each ribbon represents one person who lost their lives in Winston-Salem to domestic violence. There are also signs to inform and educate everyone that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Additional purple ribbons and signs are displayed at the Public Safety Center on Cherry Street to remind everyone that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Seen here in this picture is a picture from last year. There's a banner that hung across the bridge on University Parkway, and it has a Domestic Violence Awareness Month theme. And I want to give special thanks to Twin City Quarter because this year our banner is going to be displayed on a bridge on North Cherry Street near the Marriott Hotel. That'll be October 17th through the 22nd. So if you see it, take a picture and tweet it out. I want to give thanks to area radio stations such as FM 97.1, AM 1340, and FM 103.5. They helped us to get the word out and increase the awareness of domestic violence. So I'd like to give big thanks to Buster Brown and boss lady Anita Dean Arnett. On August 2nd, area restaurants supported Dine Domestic Violence Out of Town by donating a portion of their profits to Eliza's Helping Hands. On September 11th, we all took part in Run Domestic Violence Out of Town. The proceeds from the 5K run/walk also went to provide support for Eliza's Helping Hands. This is a picture from last year. This is our domestic violence awareness themed vehicle. Our newly wrapped DV vehicle is parked out front on Vine Street, and it has a new message on it to drive out domestic violence. This vehicle will be on display at the Winston-Salem Fair, the Haynes Mall, the Winston-Salem State University Homecoming Parade, Forsyth Technical College's Fall Festival, at the Public Safety Center, and at many of our high schools. So if you see our DV vehicle, please take a picture of it and share it, post it to WSPD Twitter or Instagram page. Members from the Winston-Salem Police Department, Community Intervention and Educational Services, Eliza's Helping Hands, and MindSight Counseling and Consultation Services have been and will be at the fair this year to provide information and answer questions pertaining to domestic violence. The Winston-Salem Police Department will participate in the 14th Annual National Family Violence Apprehension Detail on October 19th. This DV sweep is a day-long event in which agencies across the United States will attempt to serve outstanding family violence warrants. You can visit the Caracas County Sheriff's website listed here on the screen for more information on it. They'll post information such as how many warrants were attempted, how many were actually served, and things along those lines, what agencies participated. Purple lighting. Some of our downtown businesses are showing their support. We asked them to bathe their buildings in purple lighting. If you see a picture, please share it. take a picture of it and note the business name, the location, and tweet it out and post it on Instagram. Domestic violence awareness, we ask everybody to please be a part of the solution. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here and coming out this evening. I know you could have been several different places, but it is important that we, number one, we remember and we honor the victims of domestic violence. Also, part of this program is to bring awareness and work to end domestic violence. So again, thank you for being here this evening. I also want to thank the mayor. I know he's already provided some comments and he's already left. But I do want to thank our elected officials. I do see Councilmember Bessie here tonight. Thank you for being here and thank you for supporting our public safety initiatives, not only today, but every day. I also want to thank our domestic violence unit for your vision and for your leadership for what you've done to spotlight domestic violence in the month of October and all the things that you've done to make sure that we have a successful kickoff. I also want to thank the agencies that work very closely with our domestic violence unit, all the services that you provide to the citizens of Winston-Salem, not only to the victims, but to the victims' families as well that domestic violence has impacted. So again, thank you for being here. We appreciate your service. We appreciate you being here and supporting the Winston-Salem Police Department and the things that we do here in the community. So at this time, I think we will end the program. Are you coming back, Ms. Mobley? Okay, thank you.
When all of you came in, thank you so much, Chief. So, thank you. When all of you came in, you were given a little tea light. If you would all take a moment and turn them on, they're battery operated, so just flip the switch underneath. If you'll turn them on, and if we could hold them up. A friend of mine is a successful entrepreneur here in Winston-Salem. And this summer, she moved into a new home with her boyfriend, and they were all excited about setting up their new home. I ran into her this week, asked her how everything was going, and she had to force a smile. Just started getting a little weepy. She swore to me he has never laid a hand on her, but his words have. She described walking around on eggshells, being very careful, always monitoring everything she says before she says it, because she does not want to ignite his harsh words, his criticism, his belittlement. Domestic violence is rooted in fear, in insecurity, in low self-esteem. And these are characteristics that are shared by survivors and offenders. But their words give them away. Let each of us take on the personal challenge of listening, really, really listening to people. Are they speaking words of aggression, or are they speaking words of hopelessness? If they are, then these may be red flags. These individuals need our help. And then let's share with them options. There are options. There are agencies, resources here in Winston-Salem and in the Triad. And then let's tell others. Domestic violence only is able to be pervasive because of the silence. It's a silent killer. So tell others. Create a loving safety net around these individuals so they know they don't have to be alone on this journey. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can shine the light of hope. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming this evening. Good night.